Hey, friends, welcome back to another episode of Dawn's Dirt, where we talk about growing food, building small businesses, and creating community around the dinner table. I'm your host, Dawn, and if you're new here, I spent years running a 36,000 square foot greenhouse, 20 acres of vegetable gardens, two farm to table stores, and doing more farmers markets than I can even count in a week. I've seen what works and what doesn't. And here's the truth. Farmers markets can be incredibly profitable. You can pay your mortgage with a market booth. You can build a thriving business with a single table, but only if you do it right. If you do it wrong, you won't. Today, we're diving into the 5 biggest mistakes that vendors make at a farmer's market. The exact things that cost you sales, cost you customers, and cost you opportunities that you might not even realize you're missing. And don't worry, we're not here to shame anyone. We're here to learn, get better, and make more money doing what we love. I want you to avoid the mistakes that I've made or have seen made. I want you walking into the market day with confidence and a plan that actually works. We're going to start at number 5 and count our way down to the number 1 biggest mistake that I've seen every single weekend in every single market I've ever been to. Stick with me right to the end. I have a bonus tip and a free resource for you that will help you put all of this into action. All right, let's jump in. So I want to start off today by talking about why farmers markets matter. Farmers market matters because it is small business. Small business is the backbone of our food, our security, our communities. When you have a small business, that small business is the one that you're going to go to when your kids' coaching team needs a sponsor for their soccer, or can you donate a little bit here, or would you like to advertise a little bit there? Small business is the backbone of our communities, and we need more of it. We need less of these big corporations. If you're new here to the show, I truly believe we need less big corporations, and we need more and more and more small business. Today, we're breaking down the 5 biggest mistakes that I've seen vendors make at farmers markets, and I've been to tons and tons of farmers markets. So I had a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I direct marketed all of my produce, or most of my produce, to farmers markets. And so sometimes I was going to upwards of 15 farmers markets in a week. Now, I personally didn't do them all. I sent staff to them all. And so even with the way I trained my staff at farmers markets, these are the things that the tic-tactician and the mistakes that I've seen vendors make, and the mistakes that I didn't want my staff to make at farmers markets. So the 5th biggest mistake that people make at farmers markets is they actually have poor pricing. I've seen this happen over and over and over again. I was at a farmer's market this summer, and I was walking past a booth, and it was this young woman, and I've chatted with her before, and I walked past her pickles, and I said, "Whoa," I said, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Your pickles are so underpriced, it's not even funny." And you can argue with me. You could say, well, if you price them lower, you're going to sell more. But I don't think she was even selling more, because she was making a few other mistakes that I've seen. But yeah, like, you have to make sure that you are pricing your product the way they need to be. I've seen eggs. Eggs is the biggest example. People talk to me about eggs all the time. "Oh, I sell my eggs at $3 a dozen," or "I sell my eggs at $4 a dozen." And I'm like, wow, that's very, very generous and kind of you, because if you tic-tac-tician the math out on that, you're barely covering your feed costs, let alone making money on your eggs. And people say, "Oh, but they won't pay more. They won't pay more." And I say, that's not true. So when I had my farm, my tomatoes were priced. I priced one for 6, 5 for 25. And they were a little more expensive. When I first started in farmers markets, they definitely were more expensive than the grocery store. And people would be like, "Oh, those are expensive tomatoes." And you know what? I was like, no, they're not, because I guarantee my tomatoes for the week. If they go bad before the week's up, I eat what you can, compost the rest. Let me know next week. I replace them up, no questions asked. And I did replace a few tomatoes on and off, but you know what? The offset cost of replacing those tomatoes outweighed the because I made the customers happy. It outweighed the cost of the tomatoes, because the customers went away happy, and they would tell their friends and neighbors, and they would tell their people, "Oh, go buy from Dawn." That wasn't my name back then. I actually went by a different name. Little tangent, little side note here, but I my farm name was my mom's name, actually, and so people always called me by that name. And so I answered them. And so when I went back to farmers markets now, they're always like that. Some people will call me by that name, and I'm like, actually, that's not my name anymore. My name has always been Dawn, but now I only answer to Dawn. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting. People still sometimes make mistakes, and I still answer to that old school name, but yeah, really interesting. But anyways, back to pricing. So I priced my eggs this year at $10 per dozen. And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, they're good farm fresh eggs. I'm creating a small business here. I know what my costs are on those eggs, and I would like to create and pay for some of my time. And I actually didn't make that much money per hour when you looked at, the time it took and things like that. But I made a little bit. I was able to pay my bills and make a living. Am I going on a big trip someplace, or was I able to buy a new vehicle? No, no, no. Like, I didn't make that kind of money this year, but I paid for my time. And if you want good product, if you want tomatoes that taste like tomatoes, if you want good farm fresh eggs, if you want high quality stuff, price your stuff accordingly, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, people will pay it. Now, and don't compare yourself to the grocery store. You can't go into the grocery store and think that you are selling the same product as a grocery store, because it's not. It's fresher, it's quality, it's better, it's made by you. And small business generally costs more. That's just the way it is. Some people say, well, you're cutting out all the middle guys, so shouldn't it cost less? And I would say, yeah, but the pricing, like, you can only get things to cost less if you get bigger and expand, and then generate ways of like making things go faster, processes, machines, and things like that. So if you have high volume, you can get the machinery and things in place to make it go quicker. But if you're picking lettuce by hand, it's going to cost a little bit more than if you're mowing it with a lawnmower. So you have to really, customers have to understand that it's a higher quality product, but vendors also have to understand that their time is worth something. So pricing things accordingly is very, very important. Another part of pricing, you need to make sure that you price your items on your table. So I always said to my staff, if it's not priced, it won't sell. So if you don't have a little sticker on there that says what the price is, people are going to walk past, because they want to be able to look at your booth, come into your booth. They want to know what the item is and how much they have to pay, because if they have to start asking, then they're going to start feeling guilty, and it makes it a little awkward, and like, oh, these eggs are $400 per dozen. And you're like, are they laced with gold? And so they have a hard time saying no. Now, I was tricky Dicky Dawn a little bit this summer. Sometimes I didn't have the prices of my eggs put up, but it just made people come in and have to ask me. But I sold out of eggs every week at the farmer's market. Like, I brought 60 to 70 dozen, had them at $10 a dozen. And I sold out just like that every week at the farmer's market. I didn't even have enough, so I could have even sold more had I had more chickens. So yeah, you want to make sure you price it really well. And like I said, you don't want to undervalue your hard work. You are working to create these products. You are working hard to, you're taking your time to collect the eggs or make your soup or do whatever it is. So your time is worth something. You have to value your time. And that's very, very important. A lot of times business owners don't value their time. And again, there's a time and a place. I've worked for very little per hour because that's what the business needed that moment. But when you're pricing your products, you have to value your time that it takes to make them. So, so important. And then the last thing, I touched on it earlier, but bundle pricing makes a big difference. So I actually went into a little store just in town here the other day, and I noticed their jarred goods. They had pickles and jams and jellies and relishes and salsas and all the whole things. And they just had, if you buy so much, you got a percentage off. And I said, no, no, no. I said, well, price it at one for when I did my farmers markets, the last year I was in sales, I did 1 jar for $12, 3 jars for $33, and 5 jars for $50. And so the more you bought, the more you saved. And when you bundle your pricing like that, people naturally are going to buy more. And so Yeah, my vegetables were 1 for 6 or 5 for 25 because people would sometimes come up and they would have 3 items and you'd say, "Oh, if you get 2 more, you're gonna save so many dollars." The other thing that happened once in a while, and I just kinda kept my mouth shut once in a while, was my pricing was all very clear. The signage was all there. You could totally read the little ticket signs, and so when people came up with 4 items, I was like, "Okay," depending on what they grabbed, I just took their $24 because I got more per bag then. So it's just up to you, right? Do you want to get the extra dollar? Because then they would get the extra bag for a dollar. So it depended on the customer too. If they were a long-term customer, my long-term customers, by the end, they would go around my market booth and they would just put things in a bag and then they would tell me at the total at the end because it's a relationship. I've talked about that over and over on the show. When you go to a farmer's market, it's a relationship. And so my customers would, yeah, load their bags up, tell me the total, and I would just charge them for it. So was perfect. Yeah, the biggest takeaway from pricing is you want to price your business. You want to price your products like you are a business. You are not running a charity. You are not running, just a little side thing. Your value is very important. And so price your products accordingly. So, so important. Okay, that gets us to mistake number 4. Don't look bored at a farmer's market. If you are standing at a farmer's market booth and you are looking bored, or looking away or sitting in a chair. Oh, you want to know what my biggest pet peeve at a farmer's market is? Don't sit down. I didn't actually allow my staff to bring chairs to the farmer's market. I said, you are up on your feet and you are standing there because then you look like you are engaged with the customer. I didn't sit down. When I was at a farmer's market, I did not sit down. Did not. Once in a while, if there was a little bit of a slow moment, I might take one of the egg coolers and sit on it for a little bit, but I did not sit down. I was up, standing, looking at customers and saying hello. I mean, hello, hello, hello. So when I stand at a farmer's market, this is the biggest thing. When my goal, and I told my staff, I said, my goal for you is to say hello to every person that walks past the booth. Make that your goal. Say hello. And when I was standing at farmers markets this summer, I was selling chickens and eggs this summer, and I would say to people, "Oh, do you need some chickens and eggs?" Or, "I've got some chickens and eggs. Great chicken and eggs. Do you need some chicken and eggs?" And some people would just walk past and they ignore you. You have to be really good with rejection. You have to be like so on your A game with rejection because they're just going to tell you no, or they're going to walk away, or they're going to ignore you. But that's on them. You just have one more person walking past the next moment. You can say, "Hi, would you like some chicken and eggs? Hi, would you like some chicken and eggs? Hi, would you like some chicken and eggs?" And so people this summer, they would be like, "Oh, I just flew in from, Texas." And I'd be like, "Oh, well, that doesn't matter. Chickens go great in your suitcases." And then they would laugh and they'd giggle. And you know what? Sometimes those people would even come back and buy maybe not a whole roasting chicken, but they would buy some chicken breasts for supper that night because they were not in a hotel, but they were in an Airbnb where they could cook for themselves. So that's the thing. You want to make sure that you are engaging. You want to make sure that you're having jokes. Sometimes, one of my other jokes, I'm going to tell you all of my jokes that I have for my chickens and eggs this summer. So another time, a mom would be pushing a stroller, or a grandma and grandpa. I don't care who's pushing the baby in the stroller. And I'd say, "Oh, I trade chicken for babies. Are you up for the trade?" And then they'd say, "Oh, my baby cries." And I'd say, "Oh, the deal's off." And, laugh and giggle and joke around. And it's just engaging. It's having the conversation. When I had my farm, when I had my vegetables, I would say to people, "Would you like to feel my peppers? They're very firm." And I would say it so straight face. "Would you like to feel my peppers? They're very firm." And people would be like, they'd look at me and then they'd start laughing. And I'd be like, "Why are you laughing? I'm talking about peppers. Fresh peppers are firm peppers. Squishy peppers are old peppers." And then we'd make a joke. And one time a guy picked up a cucumber and made a joke. And I was shocked. It was earlier on in my farmer's market career. And he said, "You asked for it." And I said, "Yeah, okay, that's a fair statement. I kind of did open myself up to that one." So yeah, body language is so important. Don't sit. Just don't sit. Don't cross your arms. I mean, I might cross my arms, but I'm also yelling at people at the same time. Um, and just make some eye contact. Have engagement. When you are standing there and you are saying hello to people, your sales automatically are going to go up by percentage points just by even saying the word hello. So important. If you don't do it, you're going to lose out on money. You're going to leave money sitting on the table. And you are the energy that draws people in. Another time this summer, I had a guy walk past and I said, "Oh, do you need any chickens and eggs?" And he said, "I'm a vegetarian." And I was like, "Oh," and I started to laugh and I said, "Yeah, but if you were going to eat chicken, I bet you'd eat my chicken." And he said, "Oh, you'd be my favorite chicken vendor if I wasn't a vegetarian." And we just chuckled and giggled and laughed. And that's the thing. It's building the relationships. It's making their memory of you jog. And so because farmers markets are very relational, when you can build relationships with people, when you can make them smile, when you can make them feel good, I went around, people came to me just this last Christmas season, and they came to me, they sought me out at farmers markets, and I'd go up to them and I'd hug them, even like, "Hi, welcome here." It was a relationship. So you don't have to be a little over top. You don't have to be a little over the top like Don's Dirt, but you do at least have to say hello and how are you today, or what can I help you with? Or the easiest question to say is, "Can I tell you about my fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're selling? I tell you about my blah." Yeah, so important. Hey friends, on Don's Dirt, we get real about growing food, farming, homesteading, living free, and digging into the stuff that actually matters. If you're loving the dirt we're dishing out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow on your favorite social media platforms. That's how we keep growing this community of badass, soil-covered, chicken-loving, freedom-chasing humans. Like and subscribe to me on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Come be part of the movement. Mistake number 3, poor booth display. Now, I was guilty for this. I showed up at markets this year when I first started. I had my tent, I had a table, I had no tablecloth, I had the shittiest signs you could possibly think of. At one point, I was like taking like just blank pieces of paper and a Sharpie marker and just writing my prices and my signage down on that. It was so bad. So don't do as I say, don't do what I do as I say. And the reason I got away with it is because my personality is larger than life. So my display sucked, but I overcompensated it in just yelling at everyone at the market. Even at one point, the market manager was like, "Dawn, just tone it down a little bit, like just a little quieter here. You don't have to be so much." And so, so I had shitty displays. But the point is, if you're a little more reserved, if you're a little quieter, if it's all you can do to say, "Hello, how are you today? Hello, hello." Little different energy, little different vibe. So you want to make sure that your display is like hot and on fire. So pretty tablecloths, good signage, priced properly, information about who you are as a vendor. So important. If it's messy, that doesn't sell. Yeah, your display has to be on par. Pile it high, watch it fly. When it gets low, it doesn't sell. Just make your booth look pretty and full. Quick little story here. So I'd be at the farmer's market, and I always told my staff too, the last bag of something will not sell. And this is the craziest little thing. It's psychology with people. So if you had the last bag of mini cucumbers sitting there on the table, it would not sell. The only way I could make it sell, interestingly enough, was if I took the price tag off the table and I put it directly on that bag of cucumbers, and for whatever reason, it would sell. I don't know what the psychology is behind that, but it did. And so maybe because it was right on there. But the last bag is something. So if your display looks too sparse, it looks like you're almost out. So it looks like it's been picked over. You don't have the good stuff left. Whereas if it's really piled high, you've got good stuff there. Like we've got lots of it. We've got abundance. You can make your choice. You can pick your favorite bag of tomatoes. I would have customers and there was one, I forget, I don't even remember if it was a man or a woman, but I just distinctly, just as I'm sitting here yakking, I can distinctly remember there was this one customer and this individual would walk up and they would pick up the bags of tomatoes and they looked at them over and over and over and over. And it probably took them at least 5 minutes to choose one bag of tomatoes. So when you've got lots there to choose from, people will make their choices. But yeah, the last one won't sell. Take advantage of your height as well. So when I had my booth at a farmer's market, I would put crates in behind sometimes, and then I would put my jars on top of those crates. And what it did, it took your eyes and it made your eyes go upward. And so your most valuable spot is like the kind of like waist to eye height. That's your best display parts in your booth. And so if it's too high, people will miss it. If it's too low, people will miss it. And so you want to make sure that you take advantage of that full height. And I knew that from even having my grocery store. When I had my farm to table store, we made sure that we had full displays at eye level, waist level to eye level, because that's where things are going to sell the best. If you go too high, people miss it. And if you go too low, people miss it. So think about how to create that volume and that space and height in your booth. So I was recently at a farmer's market and my neighbor next to me, I'm Dawn. I'm just gonna butt my nose into wherever I want to and say opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. I just butt my business into my neighbor's booth. And they had their display set up in a 10 by 10 tent. They had their display set up in a horseshoe, in a U. And I said, you know what? I said, honestly, that's not the best use of your space because people don't want to come into your booth and feel trapped. When I had my farmers markets booths, my biggest display that I ever did was I had 6 tents set up. So 3 in the front, 3 in the back. And I had tables the full length in a horseshoe around. Plus I filled the center up with tables and full displays of produce as well. And the reason I did that, I started doing it in COVID. And the reason I did it is because people could come in on one end and go around and then leave and exit on the other end. And it just made such good flow and no one ever felt trapped. People do not want to feel trapped in there in a farmer's market booth. So that's really important. Don't have like dead ends in places that they'll get blocked. If at all possible, put your display around the outside so that they can walk around all sides. If you only have frontage, just use your frontage and maybe one side table, but not two, because people will just feel blocked and claustrophobic and they don't like that. So they're going to want to watch for, like, they'll stand back. They'll be standoffish. Oh, here's one more little tip and trick. If you have one person in your booth, you're going to have 2 and 3 and 4. It's just like when you had the grocery store. I always told my staff when I had the store, I said, put one vehicle out front because then it looks like someone's in the store. Because if it looks empty, oh, maybe that's not a good booth. But if you start creating the line, you're creating demand and people want to come in and get more and more and more. So yeah, just make sure you have a very pretty booth, make it look really sweet and nice and have people come in. And yeah, really, really, really important. Okay, so we touched on mistake number 2, not talking to customers. I kind of blended mistake number, I don't know what it was, 4, 3, 2, I don't know. Mistake number 2, not talking to customers. That's the biggest thing, is the relationship. Talk, 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 talk. Now, again, back to my neighbors at the booth. They were sitting in chairs and I said, you know what? You're going to sell more if you get up out of their chair. That was the very first thing. I said, I'm just sticking my nose where it doesn't belong, and you'll sell more if you don't sit in your lawn chair and talk to the customers. And so And then they were open to that. So then I just let the verbal diarrhea happen after that. And I started telling them more and more and more tips and tricks. But yeah, like make sure you say hello. And the biggest thing too, talk to them about your product. Why were my tomatoes better? I would say my tomatoes taste like tomatoes, not like cardboard. If you buy them and don't like them, I'll give you your money back. I would say that to people and they'd be like, what? And I'd say, yeah, if you can come back next week and tell me to my face that you didn't like my tomatoes and you wanted my money back, I said, no problem. I'll give you your money back. But then you don't get more of my tomatoes. And they were always like, they would laugh and whatever. And then they'd come back the next week and they'd be like, you were right. You were right. They are the best tomatoes I've ever had. And so, yeah, like have the conversations, tell them what they're getting, tell them what the product is, you know, if it's tallow or if it's soup or if it's whatever. I was, this last weekend, I was at a farmer's market and I was selling pickles. And so I didn't have samples. Samples really sell, but I didn't have samples. I just use my voice. I overcompensate everything by just talking too much. Talk, 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 talk. That's what Dawn is, just the talker, jokester, talker, you know, one-liners, whatever. And I didn't have any samples. And I said, these are my grandmother's recipes. They taste really good and things like that. And people, you know, I can't even feel my mouth watering because, you know, my grandma's bread and butter pickle recipe. Backstory, little side tangent rabbit hole here. My very, 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 very first business that I had ever run was called the Pickle Partners. And so me and a friend of mine, we made all these pickles, we put them in jars and we sold them at farmers markets. That was my very, very first business. I think I've even got a picture of it someplace, but anyways, the Pickle Partners. And so I've been doing this since I was probably 15 when I started that business, and I'm 45 years old now. So I don't know how many years of experience is that selling at farmers markets? I don't know, a lot. I'm old, but anyways, yeah. Make sure you talk to the customers, and so when they come up, hello, how are you? You can say to them, "Can I tell you about blah blah blah?" What you're doing is you're building the connection between yourself and your product and that person potentially buying. And so when they can feel good about their purchase, they're going to buy from you. And so, yeah, biggest mistake is not talking to customers. Make sure you just open up your mouth, put your extrovert hat on, be a little over the top, or just say hello. Makes such a big difference. So talking to someone and building the connection is the difference between selling a product versus creating the experience and the relationship around it.
Are you sitting on a farm or homestead that could be making you real money? Tired of guessing on how to market your products? I owned a 36,000 square foot greenhouse. I ran 2 farm to table stores. I had 30 people on payroll. I brought in $2.5 million in gross revenue in 2020, selling farm goods directly to customers. Now I teach farmers and homesteaders how to make money and save money off the land they already have. Whether you're selling eggs, beef, produce, baked goods, or anything in between, if you want to get into direct marketing and grow your sales, I'm the girl for you. Stop leaving money on the table and start putting it into your bank account. Join me at Dawn's Dirt Business Coaching and let's make your farm pay you back.
Okay, here is the biggest mistake that I have seen so many vendors make. And if you have made it, just stop. Just don't do it anymore. But the biggest, very, very, very biggest mistake that vendors make at farmers markets is they stand and they look at their phones. Do not scroll and look at your phone, because if you are doing that, it encompasses all of the other mistakes that I've even already been talking. If you're looking at your phone, you're not saying hello. If you're looking at your phone, you're not talking about your product. If you're looking at your phone, you're looking bored. If you're looking at your phone, you are not creating relationship. If you're looking at your phone, people are just going to walk past your booth. So that is the biggest mistake that people make. And I see it over and over and over again. So if you take nothing out of this entire whole podcast, it's get off your phone. Shut it down. Don't look at it. Whatever's being said on your phone is not more important than the potential customers in front of you, than the potential dollars that are going to get put through your booth and the growth of your business. You are there to sell. You are there to build relationship. You are there to build community. Leave your phone behind. Don't look at it. Don't touch it. So I don't know how much clearer I can get about that. I don't even know how much more I could talk about that. Just don't touch your phone. It kills it. You want to lose money? Touch your phone. You want to fail at your business? Touch your phone. Anyways, biggest mistake. So, I want to talk about some takeaways here. So just go over a rapid recall of what we were just chatting about, the 5 biggest mistakes. So the first mistake is your pricing. The second mistake is engagement. Your third mistake is your display. Your fourth mistake is not talking to customers. And your fifth mistake, biggest mistake, is using your phone. So just don't do it. So if you just tweak some of those things, you will notice more dollars in your pocket. You will notice more dollars in the till at the end of the day. And that's the whole point in business. The whole point to business at a farmer's market is to sell product and get money in the door so that you can keep doing this for profit, so that you can make more money for your homestead, your small farm, your business, your family, whatever your goal is. That's what you're there to do, is to make more money for your business. So here's the thing. If you didn't know this before, I'm actually a business coach. I teach people how to run small businesses, farm to table businesses. It can encompass any of these things. I was on a Jumpstart call today with a potential client, and I said, he lives in an apartment building. He said, well, I can't grow vegetables and sell them. I said, you don't have to grow vegetables and sell them. There's lots and lots and lots of other options. And so if you've ever wanted to start a small business for yourself, do farm to table sales, take your system back into your own hands, send me a message. Send me a message to Don's Dirt, and we'll get you hooked up. And I help my clients achieve their goals in whatever business capacity that is. If you want to start a store, if you want to go to farmers markets, if you want to do a CSA, if you want to do online sales, if you want to do any of it, I've done it all. And so that's my little offer, and my little plug-in here today is that's what I do, is I teach people how to take their sovereignty and the system back into their own hands and create a small business for themselves. I've done small business for many, many years, and I can help you too. So yeah, you can change the world by starting a small business. Thank you so much for being here today. If you've enjoyed this, hit the subscribe button, tune in again, and listen to Don's Dirt, because yeah, I've got lots of rabbit holes, lots of stories, and I just want to see more people do farm to table and create their food sovereignty and take the system back into their own hands. So thanks so much for joining me today.